can choose to opt into a narrative that isn't going to serve us, or we can choose to opt into a narrative that will. And it doesn't mean that we won't have those moments of self-doubt. I've had 1,000 of them all the time. And what I know too is that so have the athletes and coaches that the world looks at and goes, there's no way Steph Curry gets nervous. 100% they do, 100%, but they do it anyway.
Welcome to Amplify with Jess Ekstrom. If you're ready to amplify your ideas, your influence, and your income, then you're in the right place. Today's guest is the Molly Fletcher, a former trailblazing sports agent known as the female Jerry Maguire, and now one of the most in-demand motivational speakers in the world. Molly shares why confidence isn't something you wait for. It's something you build through action. Whether you're negotiating a raise, asking for what you deserve, or stepping on stage for the first or 100th time, she offers real, actionable advice on how to show up, speak up, and level up without burning out. But first, let's start with one of my favorite stories. After playing tennis at Michigan State, 21-year-old Molly moved from Michigan to Atlanta and figured out how to live rent-free for 9 years.
I essentially when I got down, I had learned through a few phone calls, and I'm a big fan of curiosity, which I talk about a lot too, that you could teach tennis at an apartment complex in exchange for a little reduction on your rent. And when I learned that, I was like, wait a minute, I played tennis at Michigan State, taught, I thought, this is exactly what I need to try to make it down here, because I didn't have any money or a job. So long story short, I negotiated with this apartment manager pretty close to where I was at my friend's and negotiated a deal to teach tennis in exchange for my rent one night a week. So I had sort of all day to continue to pursue. And I just taught every Tuesday night for an hour and a half. And, really just anchored it. And I brought gear from Wilson Sporting Goods that I got my buddy to hook me up with so that I could give it away at the clinics. I went across the street to this pizza place and got them to agree to give me free pizza once a month in exchange for me putting coupons in the newsletter for them, and wrote tennis tips for the newsletter. And so I'm a big fan of, how do you, sometimes I say, like, act like you have the business before you have the business. And so they offered $500 off the $850, which was the monthly number. And I sort of tried to continue to add value until she sort of looked at me after a couple of days and said, you know what? Like, the guy we have doesn't do any of this stuff. Like, this is incredible. Like the pizza, the tips, the Wilson stuff. And so I moved in and taught literally every Tuesday night for free for 9 years. It was killer. It was and it was really a little bit of a unsophisticated version of how I recruited athletes too, at some level.
I was going to say,
glad you remember that story.
What were, because I think about that sometimes too, is like, I'm sure at this point in your career, whether you were doing, a deal with an athlete or a deal for a speaking engagement, because you're one of the most top booked speakers in the world, you have learned the art of making things a win-win. And maybe people call that negotiation. I don't know, maybe not. Mm-hmm. But what is some word to the wise for the people who are listening that want to learn how to negotiate better or want to demand a higher fee for their speaking, or maybe just ask their boss, for promotion? What are some tips that you have around negotiation?
Yeah. And it was my world for almost 20 years in that space. But, for me, I think we get more confident influencing, asking for what we want, as you said, it's, having difficult conversations, which is sort of what negotiation is, when we practice. So what I first encourage people always to do is practice in a really safe environment. Practice when you go to Starbucks and you want an extra shot and you need to, go roll over to the barista and sort of work them a little bit and see if he'll throw an extra shot in. I mean, and I'm just sort of using that as a fun, but just practice in safe environments. I negotiated with an orthodontist for our daughter's, braces once, or so practice negotiating. And that was something truly I would watch my mom growing up, talk the checkout counter lady at the grocery store into taking an expired coupon, or working the lady behind the Nordstrom desk to try to see if she'd give her just a little bit more off because of the, spot on the dress that she wanted. And so I realized that the more that we practice, the more comfortable we get when we're in bigger moments. And, for me, I certainly didn't negotiate $100 million contracts out of the chute for big league baseball players. I mean, I started, doing, dry cleaning trade out for an NBA coach or free water bottles for a baseball player. And the more that you practice, the more comfortable and confident you get. So number one, get reps in a safe environment. It'll help you feel more comfortable. And then I think little things like, I think one of the mistakes we make sometimes is we spend a lot of time thinking about what we want and need and the problem that we're potentially working to solve for ourselves. And I think we're much better suited spending time in the head and the heart of the other people that we're trying to do a deal with so that we can uncover what is their gap and how can I support closing it for them. It's like that apartment complex story. It's not like she's waking up every day losing, grinding, trying to find the perfect tennis pro, right? Like she just wants to keep her occupancy up and her residents happy and renewals going. And if I could be a part of solving that for her, that was what mattered to her the most. So I think that is a critical component that often we overlook and can serve us all well in supporting and serving other people when we're trying to get a deal done.
Getting the reps in is so important. We just started something called Mic Drop Club. We actually have a chapter in Atlanta, so would love for you to make a cameo there where it is a women's speaking club to just get the reps in. Because most of the time when you are doing the deal or the negotiation or the speaking opportunity, the time you get to practice is the time that you're doing it, where you're live on air or whatever it is. And it's funny, like talking about just doing it in low stakes environments. I mean, like you, I have negotiated a speaker fee with some of the biggest companies in the world, but yesterday my hands are quivering at Publix trying to get a refund for these expired cookies with this like 15-year-old kid behind the counter that's like, yeah, lady, just go get another set of cookies. And so it's so funny how like no matter how many times sometimes I do this in like some areas of my life, I still am a people pleaser in other areas. Was that ever something? I mean, you're a woman in such a male dominated field, obviously dubbed female Jerry Maguire. Talk about imposter syndrome, or did you ever feel like I not only have to be as good as the men in my industry, I have to be better in order to get the same amount of respect?
Yeah. And I think too, it's important to delineate between negotiating for someone else and negotiating for ourselves. And I think that's an important thing to consider because we often have a harder time asking for things for ourselves. But
so true.
But like when my girls were young, I mean, I'd roll into the elementary school and get it done for them. Do you know what I mean? Like every mom or who's listening.
Absolutely.
So I think we have to delineate between that and we have to sort of pull back and say, what's at risk if I do ask for what I want, what I deserve, what is right, if you will, what is fair, and what is at risk if I don't. And so, I mean, to your question about being, looking at the outside and then adjusting what I do on the inside. And that's a lot of what I talk about in Dynamic Drive is this different approach to drive, this different approach to the pursuit, which is this desire to be better from the inside out. And I certainly found myself in moments where I was mistaken as a girlfriend or why is your wife walking a practice round with you to a PGA Tour player? And there was a lot of moments where I'd curl back up and crawl in my car and think, maybe I'm crazy. Like there's no women out here. Like managers are yelling at players for talking to me through the fence at ballparks. What am I doing? Right? Maybe this is crazy. But then I started to go, wait a minute. Or I could tell myself a different story that could in fact close a gap in the market and serve these athletes and coaches better than maybe the people that have been doing it for a long time or differently. And so I think we can choose to opt into a narrative that isn't going to serve us, or we can choose to opt into a narrative that will. And it doesn't mean that we won't have those moments of self-doubt. I've had 1,000 of them all the time. And what I know too is that so have the athletes and coaches that the world looks at and goes, there's in no way Steph Curry gets nervous. There is in no way, Jalen Hurts a little bit anxious or has self-doubt in moments, 100% they do. 100%. But they do it anyway.
Mm.
And that's the how we build our confidence, by doing it. To your point about, I love the club in Atlanta and otherwise, that the more that you sort of practice, the more comfortable that you get when you step into the different and maybe bigger moments.
You shared that studies show 80% of people give up on their New Year's resolutions by
Mhm.
February. So
Yeah.
even sometimes when we're trying to have, be better or do better, it
Mhm.
fades quickly. Why is that? What can we do about it?
Well, what we can do about it, I think, is a few things. I mean, number one is recognizing that motivation, like the motivation that somebody feels when they set their New Year's resolutions or set a goal, it's there. Like they're well-intended goals or outcomes that we want, but motivation isn't enough.
Mhm.
It isn't enough. I mean, it's a wonderful thing, but it isn't enough to keep you going. And so you need lots of other things in service of being able to keep going. There's 7 keys that I think are critical that I talk about in Dynamic Drive, but one I think that is really critical is the why around it, Jess. I mean, I think we have to know why. And so purpose is such a critical component for continuing the work when it gets hard, which anything that's sort of interesting and worthwhile in our lives, I believe, are going to be hard, and they're going to require discipline and resilience and other people's support and a lot of things. And so we've got to know why,
Mhm.
beyond just that we wrote it down on December 30th and said we're going to do something, right?
Right.
And that's why I love this piece that has helped a lot of people, and I'll share it briefly, but it's something I call an alignment audit, which is a really important way, I think, to get aligned with what we're chasing in life. I think
Mm.
sometimes when you ask people, what are you chasing? They're not sure, but they're really busy. And I found myself there, right? Like, it's like, what are you chasing? And so I think you can pull back and say, what are the things that are most important to you? Right? Like, what are those things, physically, mentally, emotionally, relationally? What are those things? And then consider, okay, how much time, attention, and energy am I giving those things that I've identified as being really, really important to me?
Mm.
And then rate yourself, right? So, like, you've identified these things that are, let's call it a 10 in your life. They're tens, they're really important to you. And then you've rated yourself relative to the amount of time, attention, focus, energy you're giving it, like a 5. Like, I say sleep's important to me. It's a 10, but I'm not really treating it like it's critical. So I've got a gap. So it just exposes areas that are opportunities for improvement. And
Yes, I
you know,
love
so I think one is, what is the real why around it? Because it keeps you going when it gets hard. If you are trying to lose weight and it's a New Year's resolution, and the why is, I would argue, something that is external, and sort of superficial in nature, versus maybe I want to lose weight because I want to be able to get on the floor with my
Mhm.
children and play with them, so they remember that I was right down there with them putting those Legos together, and I can't get down there anymore and feel comfortable. That's a why that's going to keep you walking past the chocolate chip cookies on the counter. You know what I mean?
Right.
So purpose is critical. And then I think we got to break them down into little steps. One big audacious goal, we've got to break them down into little steps along the way, and recognize the power and acknowledging our effort along the way. I call them dopamine hits. We have this incredible chemical in our body called dopamine, and we can tap into it by acknowledging our progress along the way and sort of releasing a little bit of that dopamine. And so it's important along the way to say, hey, I'm doing pretty good, man. Like, I'm tracking here. That's a really important thing. And celebrate along the way when little things, sort of, you have some success. Celebrate them, acknowledge it, and celebrate it. So I think those are some things that can help people that are maybe finding themselves right now going, "God, I mean, I'm not tracking," and
Yeah.
those things can help.
And you talk also about, I think this is really important for women, protecting your energy. It is something that I feel like, on a scale of 1 to 10 right now, I'm at like a 2 on that, because I also have 2 kids under
Mm,
2 right now, a 8-month
yeah.
old and a
Yeah.
2-year-old. And so protecting my energy, there's things that I of course want to do.
Sure.
But I always feel like, I think I haven't turned off the boundary like setting yet. I want to be able to say yes. And I want to be able to make
Mm.
people happy, even if it's
Mhm.
at the expense of my energy. And so do you have tips around protecting your energy so you can say yes to the things that you really want to say yes to?
Oh my gosh. I mean, can we go for another hour, Jess? Because like this is a hot button for me. I
I
mean,
know, I know.
I mean, my husband and I had 3 kids in 12 months, and I was running around like a maniac as an agent and all
I
these
knew
things.
you would be the person to talk to about this.
And I
Yeah.
mean, and that was, I remember, like, I think I got on an airplane and I'd flown all over, and I was crying. I was exhausted. So all of this to say, I was chasing, I think, the wrong formula. And what I think the world says is hey, Jess, you can balance it all. Like you can
Mhm.
balance the kids, the husband, the work, the health, you can balance it. But I think that that's the wrong pursuit. I think balance is a nebulous, unattainable, exhausting attempt that isn't achievable. And I don't
It's
even
a
think it's
guilt
actually
trap.
what we want. I know
Yeah, it's a
it's
guilt trap.
brutal. And
Mhm.
so, because I was doing that, I was chasing this balance thing. And then I was like, wait a minute, this is not working. And I feel worse. Like I feel like you feel worse about yourself because you're like trying to pour into all these things that you're balancing, but what's happening is you're actually not laddering up and aligning with what matters. So I think the better question is, what are the things that really matter most? And then
Mm.
creating the processes and the discipline to say yes and no against the things that matter most to you. And this is a little bit of a byproduct of the alignment audit. What are then you're going to say yes and no to, which becomes really clear because you've identified what matters most. The
Mhm.
result of that is living in alignment with what matters most to you. And the truth is, I think to go after things in our lives wholeheartedly, we're gonna be out of balance.
Mhm.
There's gonna be periods of time where we're out of balance, and then there's gonna be periods of time where we're not. That's why I think balance is the wrong pursuit. So, I think what I'm fundamentally encourage people to do is one, get really clear on what matters most, because I think that will allow you to play a different game that is a game that is an attainable game and one
Mhm.
that is possible and one that actually ensures that you're living into the legacy you want to leave versus trying to sort of show up as 50% of yourself in thousands of categories, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
So I think that that's a powerful thing, but the other thing I think is critical is like when I was an agent, athletes, all they do is think about who and what they give their energy to. I always joke when I'm keynoting at events and I'll say, like, does anybody ever show up for like a Zoom meeting and go, "Why am I in this meeting? Like, what am I doing here?" And everybody laughs because they're like, "Totally." And then you get to the 4 o'clock meeting on Wednesday that's critical. Hugest pitch in the week, big client, whatever it might be, and you don't have any energy
Mm.
for the one that really mattered. So I think we have to get really, really clear on looking at our lives through the lens of energy and our schedules through the lens of energy, because we live as business people through the world of time. But I actually think we've got to steal something from the world of sports and think about it through the lens of energy. So I would say protect the things in your that give you energy in your calendar, like your life depends on it. The
Mm.
sleep,
And
the
and
workouts, the whatever it is.
and being able to articulate that too to others, and being able
100%.
to have an unapologetic, "Oh, I can't make that,"
Mhm.
what and no being a complete answer. We have a lot of women speakers who listen to this podcast.
Mm.
You're one of the most top booked speakers in the world. Your TED Talk has over 1 million views. What advice do you have for women trying to either make it out there as a professional speaker or just be able to speak with
Mm.
confidence?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's doing it often as often as you can. I mean, and stepping in to the little moments and getting the reps, and recognizing that. I mean, you're kind of say all those things, but the truth is, like, for years ago, my husband and I were standing, stealing a ballroom at the Ritz-Carlton with a camera, and I was changing my clothes 17 times so we could make a speaker reel. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, we've all been
there.
Totally. So I would just say to people, say yes, yes, yes. Get the reps in, because I always think the more you speak, the more you speak. And the more comfortable that you get, the more that you begin to learn what lands and what doesn't, when people laugh, when they don't, what people seem to connect to more than they don't connect to. And so I think that is just a really, really critical component to feeling like you can say yes to maybe a bigger moment that is something that in fact you want to do. Obviously, it's a little bit of a different model if you're wanting to sort of speak and present inside of your organization versus potentially speak. Mm-hmm. And then I think asking for feedback from people that are going to tell you the truth. Because what happens after a keynote is everybody's like, "Oh my God, that was a myth.
You're the best." Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. And so, like, I believe nothing. And I always want to sort of get to the person that's going to go like, "But did that or have people, whether it's my husband or my team in the room, that go in like, "By the way, like, when you told that story, like, you missed this and that would have been helpful." And like, get people that are going to give you really authentic feedback so that you can keep getting better and better and better. And in service really of connecting with the audience, which is obviously 100% of the reason that we're there. So those are a couple things that come up for me, but I could go on and on that one, Jess.
The themes around what you talk about with dynamic drive, with being a sports agent and being a speaker are know your why, get in the reps, and get your confidence through action. And I think no matter what we're tackling this week or next week, if we can focus on those three things, we can do some work.
Well, yeah. And I think too, Jess, the other thing that comes up for me is be you, right? Like, when I was an agent, I didn't try to be like the guys in the khakis and the golf shirts. And when I thought about it, I mean, that's not who I was. It wasn't going to work, and it's not sustainable. So, like, you might go and see a speaker and think, "Oh, I'm going to try to do that." Be yourself. That's what people connect to, and that's what they want, is your version of your take, whether it's your stories, your approach, your style, your inflection, your cadence. Be you. That's what is going to take you home and serve others.
The Molly Fletchers, the Jess Ekstroms, the Glennon Doyles, all of those people already exist. And so people need what you have. Yeah. Molly, thank you so much for being here. I am honored to call you a friend after all these years, and really, really appreciate you coming on Amplify.
Love it. And it's awesome to be with you, Jess. Great to see you.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening to Amplify. If you're a fan of the show, show us some podcast love by giving us a rating and review. This episode is brought to you by Mic Drop Workshop, where you can learn how to become a better speaker, how to land paid speaking gigs, and become a keynote speaker. This episode was edited and produced by Walk West. I'm Jess Ekstrom, reminding you that you deserve the biggest stage, so let's find out how to get you there. I'll see you again soon.